my friend Steve Medina.
You know, the reason why I asked Janine to come speak today and introduce me, because when I wanted to do this talk, it's so personal to me for so many reasons, and I'll share a lot of those tonight. Can you hear me? Am I okay? Okay. I didn't know if I just wanted to jump right into it, but as this talk started coming together, I started feeling a little bit more at peace. And we have a little child here, so I'll make sure I don't cuss today. No, I will be, now that she's here, maybe God put her here today so I don't cuss. But like I said, this is just a personal talk, and I just want to tell you, thank you for everybody for coming today. When you talk about God and religion, it is so personal. And I think everybody in here, I mean, I don't know, does everybody here believe in God? Or maybe, how many people believe in God? Okay. How many people believe in, or go to a church? Okay, so it's pretty much about 90%. So when I wanted to do this talk, I came up, how can I do this talk where at sometimes I don't want to offend anybody, but at the same time I need to speak from my experience. So I think that was one of the hardest things to do. And then last week I pretty much just had a little prayer with God and said, God, how do you want me to do this? I don't want to make you look bad. I don't want you to, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. I've got to be honest. And I think that was one of the places that I had to get to. So I have peace that what I say today comes from the heart. And if I offend somebody, I apologize. But at the same time, I definitely got to speak what's in my heart from past experience. When I was a kid, I grew up in the church. One of the first churches that I went to, and I was about 6 years old, was a church called Pleasant Grove Baptist Church. Yeah, Pleasant Grove Baptist Church in Little Rock. And it was predominantly African American. And it was a very, very small church, probably 20 to 30 people. And I remember on a Sunday morning, I would be getting up, and I don't know, you guys remember Popeye, the cartoons on Channel 5, really early, long time ago. And I remember on Channel 5, it was Vince Van Patten, and he would have these 2 hours of cartoons. So what I would do, I'd get up about 7:30, and it started at 8, and I would watch these little cartoons, and I was very, very quiet, because I wanted to watch cartoons, and I was hoping that my mom would oversleep and we wouldn't have to go to church. Because football came on at 9 o'clock, and this was on Sundays, and I was only 6 years old, but I was a very big Cowboy fan. So I'd tippy-toe and I'd be real quiet, and I'd want to make sure I didn't wake up my mom, and then as I'm watching cartoons, sure enough, I hear my mom wake up. I'm like, God, dog it, all right, we got to go to church. And I don't know if you guys have been to, certain churches, but Brandon, no offense, but African American churches go very, very long. So you get until about 1:30, 2 o'clock. And now I'm upset because my football is done, and I don't even know, we didn't have no internet, so I didn't know if the Cowboys won or not. So, by the time then we go out to lunch. So we would get home till what, Mom? 3 or 4 o'clock. So as a kid, and then I'd watch, and I was about 6, I was 6 years old, and I'd watch how they did things, and they were really good about singing and praising and talking about Jesus and how good he was. And so I sat there and I watched, but my attention span being a little kid, I got bored really, really fast. So we went to those churches a little bit, and my mom, how long you guys been married?
1977.
So that's, any mathematicians in here?
34.
34 years. Let's give a round of applause. Because the pastor was a woman, and they married them in the house. So we went to that church for a little while, and then we bounced around for the first part, for the next few years. We would go to different churches. And sometimes we'd go to the
Springs of Life.
Springs of Life. I'll go into that a little bit. We went to Desert Vineyard.
Assembly of God.
Yeah, Desert Vineyard was over at that time in the old fairgrounds. So the Desert Vineyard, what I liked about the Desert Vineyard church was you could drink coffee and you could have donuts and you could eat whatever you want. It was very kickback. And they would have these round tables. And I was like, okay, that's what I like, And they had good praise and worship. So I started seeing certain things. And then we went to that church for a little while. And then we went to the First Assemblies of God church on, I believe that's 15th. So then I started seeing that. And then that church was okay. And, as I started going and bouncing around to all these churches, I was so little, but I really didn't, it didn't bother me that they had their own beliefs, because I would go with my mom, and you know, we're so influenced by our family. So obviously if my mom is taking us there, then it's a pretty good church, because you know, we do a lot of things from the way we were raised. We do our laundry, and we raise our kids the way we were. And I think that's the reason why relationships kind of buck heads, because when you come up together, the husband has his way of raising his kids because the way his mom taught him in his family, and then the daughter too. So it's a conflict of what we see and what we were raised. So, you know, I didn't really think nothing of it. So, and then we went to other churches, like my mom said. We went to a spirit-filled church called the Foursquare Church, and I liked that church because it was a lot of praise and worship, and you worship your higher power. So, you know, we went to that church for a little while, and then we went to Springs of Life, and that was more of a charismatic church. One of those ones where you had these prophets that would come to the church, and they were so-called prophets, and they'd come in from different cities, and these guys would come in here and they'd tell you, how you doing, Mark? Pull up a chair, bud. They would prophesy. They would tell you, you know, all these things of what you're doing, and God told me that you would do this, and I'm probably about 10 or 11 years old, and I remember sitting in the seats, and I was sitting like this. I was like, oh my God, I hope you don't come over here, because I kissed this girl yesterday, and my mom sees me, she's going to kill me, you know? I was all nervous because I thought this guy, and I'm going to be honest, I got to be fair. Some of these people that came did say some things that were true, and then a lot of them come find out they weren't true. So then I started seeing that, but like I said, it didn't really bother me then, because I was a kid, and you know, it's just, all right, that's the way they believe. And once again, if my mom is taking me there, then it must be the best. And then we started going to these one church. I don't know if you've ever heard of Kenneth Copeland and Creflo Dollar and Jesse Duplantis, and we'd go to these large conventions in Anaheim, and we'd go there for a week, and we'd go every year, huh, Mom? For about 15 years, every 4th of July, and it was in the Anaheim Convention Center. So we'd have services at 9, 1, and 7 every day from Monday to Saturday. And that was an interesting one, and I kind of liked that, I'm going to be honest with you, because there was good energy. And they dressed really good, and they were funny, and they told good stories. But what I liked about it at the time was, it was like God was Santa Claus. You could just ask for whatever you want, and if you believe it, you receive it. And I was like, okay. I was like, so I'd be praying for certain things, probably shouldn't have been praying for, but I would do it anyway because that's the way they were taught. And once again, it really didn't bother me because I was growing up, and it was just okay, no big deal. But I did like that, to be honest. I did like them because, like I said, they were funny, and there was a lot of energy, and they did a lot of good music. So all pretty much through my life, we'd go to church, and I really had this almost a confusion about my beliefs, but I still believed in God. I still prayed about him, and I had a good relationship with him. Though I was a little confused, because it seems to me every church that I went to had a particular belief. But like I said, it didn't bother me. I'm 12, 13 years old. And then I just started doing what a normal boy does, and I wanted to be a pro baseball player, and you know, I tried to pursue that realm, and then I ended up getting hurt. And then right after I got hurt, that's when my direction just went this way. Probably when I never thought that I ever believed in God, because I just went to the left real fast. So then I find myself, you know, looking down of 5, 6 police officers ready to shoot me because I have a bunch of drugs, and they knew that I was doing a drug deal. I'm just giving you the short, fast story, which most of you guys have heard this story before. So within a year, I end up going to jail. And then when I was in jail is when things really started changing. I remember I was dating my oldest. I have my oldest, she's 18 years old. I was dating her mom at the time, and when I went to jail, that was the only good thing I had left, because I lost everything. I lost my car, I'm a convicted felon, and I'm sitting in jail, and that was the last thing that I ever, that I cared about. Everything else just was gone. It was stripped. I remember sitting in jail, and I still, you know, talked to God, but I was more ashamed of him at the time. So then she came and saw me one day, and you know, I told her, I said, you know, I think I was in jail about a month, and I was like, you know, I'm so sorry, I've changed. I says, will you forgive me? I go, you know, I want to make things work. You know, Sienna's only a year old, and I know I've treated you wrong, and all these drugs, and the way I treated you, I'm sorry, and just please, you know, take me back. And then she's like, okay. She's like, you know, I'll take you back, but you know, I've been talking to this guy, and you know, he's just a friend. Just a friend. You know, that famous last words. But you know, I tell him about you, and I go, oh yeah? And I go, you know, so then I get all jealous, you know, didn't have no right to being jealous because I was in there and I treated her wrong. So I says, well, if we're going to make this work, could you stop talking to him? Because, you know, all these, us being out of control. Could you stop talking to him? Because if we're going to work on getting back together, then you know, I think we need to cut this off. So she goes, okay, no problem. It's the way she said it. I didn't think nothing. I got this little thing right here. So I went back to my cell, and she left, and then 2 weeks later, now I never would make a phone call when I was in jail, because there's this law that you have when you're in jail that you really don't want to know what's going on. What you think is going on, you know, when it comes to you know, the stories of women, you know, and men, you know, people cheating on each other, things like that. So I tried not to do that, but there was something I was like, you know, I gotta call her real quick. So I called her. I'll never forget. I used the phone in the activity center in Wayside. It was a minimum jail, Wayside over Castaic Lake. And I remember calling her, and I was like, so how you doing? And I go, so did you stop talking to Jose? I try to say it in the nicest tone of voice. And all of a sudden she said, you know what? She said, I can't stop talking to him. And then I was like, and then, you know, I just knew. And right then and there, I remember putting the phone down real quick, and I was like, okay. And I knew that it's just, you just know, some things you just know. You listen to this. You know what I mean, Kelly? You listen to that, and I said, okay. I said, well, you know, because I didn't have any right. I'm the one who put myself in that position. I didn't have any right to say, stop talking to him. So I was like, okay. I said, you know what? I said, just go ahead and continue to talk to him. I go, I understand. I go, it's my fault that I put myself in here, and I didn't want to fight for her. I didn't feel anything of me. I mean, I had no self-esteem because I'm in jail. So I hung up the phone. And so my stomach just like dropped. I mean, I remember walking down the walkway, and I walked past the church, and there was a park bench right there. And I remember sitting there. And that's when everything just hit me. Just hit me, because I just lost anything that I had at the time. And then, you know, it's like a snowball effect. Everything, just you look at your whole life. It's like, you know, and I'm in jail, and I'm a convicted felon. I'm 25 years old. I don't know what my future lies, and I'm probably going to spend another 4 months in jail. I couldn't call my friends and say, hey man, let's go have a beer. I need to talk. I couldn't call anybody. I had to go to my jail cell. So I remember sitting there, and I was sitting on the park bench, and there was a softball field to the right side, and I just started bawling. And I didn't care. And in jail, I don't care. You know, you're supposed to be tough in jail, but I couldn't take it no more. So I just started bawling and crying, and I remember going, and I was like, God, you know, I go, God, I go, you know, all my life, I've been to churches, and I think I know you, but if you really are real, if you can take this pain, because I can't take it no more. If you can take this pain, I'll do whatever you want. And I'll serve you, and I'll do, you know, you're mine, I'm yours. And as soon as I said that, it didn't happen right there. Right that quick, Brandon. I don't know the time, to be honest with you. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, I don't know. But all of a sudden, I felt this warmth, this peace that grabbed me. And the only thing I can relate it to is when you're scared of the dark and your parents come in and they hug you and they tell you it's going to be okay. And then I remember I was crying so much I had all the snot down my nose. And then all of a sudden I knew right there when I had this presence, whatever this presence was, I knew it was real because I felt it. And then right then and there, I knew I was going to be okay. I can't explain it, but I knew. And that whoever this was I didn't deserve it because I'm a drug dealer. I'm a convicted felon. So this higher power, this God that I reached out to was a God of love and forgiveness. I was high when my daughter was born, Sienna. I had all these things that I did. But this thing that came upon me, and I remember, and then I stopped crying almost immediately, and I just knew right here in the way I felt that I was going to be okay. And I never cried over her. I never hurt like that again. I ended up getting out about 2 months later on good time. And then I knew something was different. Something was different. Whatever this was, it was real. And I did a lot of drugs in my life. I've had the best weed. I've had the best speed. I've had the best cocaine. But this was different. This was different. I don't know what it was. But I knew it was real. You know, so the next day, not that night, the next day, I picked up the Bible, and thank God for the Gideons. The Gideons is an organization. They go to the jails and they give you Bibles. And I don't know who they were, but I thank God. And I picked up a Gideon. It was a little book like this. It had Psalms and Proverbs in the New Testament. And then I started reading. And then for the first time, that Bible made sense. It was so boring when I was a kid. My mom would force me. And reading the Bible was like taking out the trash. But this was real. And I could relate to the book. Never before in the 24 years that I was raised in all these churches and did that, was it become more and more real. And then I took a liking to the Old Testament. Because when you study the Old Testament, you get to know the lives of these people that God used. Like David, and he had all these issues. He was a murderer and adulteress. And then Noah and Abraham and Elijah and Elijah. And all these people that had issues. Even the women, Ruth, Esther. All these people had these insecurities. So I grabbed onto that. And so that's where I could relate. And then I noticed that these people had these relationships with God. Prior to me growing up and going to these churches, it was more about rules and tradition. But now I started grabbing this relationship. I said, all right, I can relate to that person, and I can relate to that person. And now all of a sudden all this stuff started making sense. And then I started reading the New Testament. And I was in jail. I had no time. I was by myself. People that are single, anybody single in here? It's okay to be by yourself. Because you know what? You can focus on you. When you're married, when you have a boyfriend, what you got to do, you got to make sure they're okay. So you take all this time to go work on them. You don't have time for you. But then I was sitting right there by myself. So I started reading. And all of a sudden I went to the little church. They had this church right there. And I looked on the wall and I was like, okay, this experience that I had, I'm going to go check everything out. What's the next church service? It was a Presbyterian church. All right, I'm going to that one. So I went to that one, and it was kind of, because this thing that I went through was real, and I wanted to know more about it. And so what did I do? I went back to what I thought. I went back to the churches. So I listened to that, and then the next one was the Catholic Mass. And I'm Mexican, and in jail all the Mexicans go to Catholic Mass. So I go in there, I feel like home, and I get a rosary, and I'm doing all of that, right? All those traditions, getting back up, getting down, whatever. I wanted to know what this experience was. And then the Baptist church. The Baptist church, predominantly black. So I went over there, and his name was Fred, and I liked Fred. He was an older gentleman, and he spoke the truth, and I liked him. And then I went there, and then Presbyterian was on a Saturday. And I remember on a Saturday, I didn't go to that service. Did I? No. But I remember this lady coming out of the church. And she was an old lady, kind of like Grandma. Mom, I've never told you the story. She was about 65, 70 years old. And in that day, it was hot in the summertime. It was about 102 degrees. And I remember how hot it was. But this lady drove all the way from wherever she was to the jail. And I remember the police officer taking her out, walking her back. And I didn't want to get too close to her because I was an inmate. But she was walking like this, real slow. And I remember sitting to her. And I looked at her and I was like, thank you. We need you. Thank you for coming. So she looks at me, she said, you're welcome, I'll see you next week. And that's all she said. I mean, nothing prophetic. And she walks back over here. And then that's when I started realizing what true God was. This lady traveled from where she's at, comes in this heat, 70 years old, talking to the inmates. Presbyterian. But you know what? Some people didn't go to her church, her service. Why? Because they didn't go to that denomination. The Catholics went to what? Catholic Church. And the Baptists went to what? Baptist. And the Evangelical went to the Evangelical. But nobody gave, not that she ever wanted credit, but nobody would come see her because of her denomination. So that's when things started. It's like I was opening my mind to a lot of things. And that's when I started doing the research, and then I got out of jail, and then I wanted to go to a Bible school, and like in life sometimes, we get a little detoured. I met a girl. Need I say more? Just kidding. So for 2 years, I got caught up in a girl. And what do we do when we have relationships? We get concerned about what they do. We want to make them happy. And then I had to realize that, listen, I need to get back on track. I need to get back on track. So I pretty much had to break up with her. But it was a good breakup. And I wanted to go to this Bible school that one of the preachers that I went to in Anaheim. And I went to his conference. And it was in July 3rd. Now, I talked to the people about the school, and the school started in September. But I was on probation for 3 years. So I went to my probation officer, and I said, I want to go to this school. Is it okay if I can transfer my probation? So the guy goes, I don't think you can. You really can't transfer your probation. You got to serve out your probation time. But I knew, in here that I was supposed to go to that school. And then my brain says, all right, maybe I can't. He's like, what we're going to have to submit it to Texas, and then what we'll do, it's going to be at least 3 or 4 months. And I was like, 3 or 4 months? I don't have 3 or 4 months. This school's going to start in a month and a half. And I was like, so if you get cleared, you get cleared, but we won't probably have an answer for about 3 or 4 months. So anyways, I was like, all right, well, let's submit it anyway. 2 weeks later, I get this response in the mail. And this response in the mail said that your probation's been terminated. So I was like, wow. So I was like, okay. So maybe I am supposed to go to the school. And then weird things started happening, just things that just kind of, confirmations that we have in life, I had one more thing to do. I was like, God, I'm praying. I go, what do I do about my daughter? I go, she's just getting ready to start kindergarten, and I can't go try to save the world and leave my daughter here. And then I got this thing in here. I don't know what it is. This gut, I'm going to do a talk on the gut. Just a whole talk on the gut. And it just, she'll be okay. I mean, and this one was just like that. Okay, all right. And that was it. I told my mom. My mom was bucking the system. She didn't want me to go. She didn't want me to leave my daughter. A lot of people didn't want me to go. But I just knew that I was supposed to go to the school. So we take off, and then we go to school, and my mom, we hop in the car, and my mom drives, all the way to Fort Worth, Texas, and we go to this school. And it's funny because the apartment that we got, when I started moving all the furniture, I walked upstairs and I saw this little address right there on my room, and the address, I believe, was 2525 Sienna Drive. Pretty weird. It's one of those, we'll freaked out. I was like, all right, now I'm no good. And then my mom goes, ah! She got all, remember that, Mom? You got all freaked out. Look at that, she's almost crying. Because it was one of those, Okay, maybe you are. There is something to this. So then I get there, halfway across the country, left my family, broke up with my girlfriend for truth. Going back to that experience that I had. So the first 2 weeks, I'm there. And what do? I get religious on God. I say, God, I'm here. You want me to study the New Testament? You want me to study the Genesis? Read it from cover to cover? All these things that I was taught to do. And then I got, once again, here, a lot of this tonight is about this. Gym membership. My mind's gone, but this, 2 weeks later, I was like, well, gym membership, I'm living on $5 a day. I'm working at Mervin's in the shoe department. I can't afford a gym membership. Fort Worth, Texas. 2 weeks later, a Presbyterian church comes over. School. And for all the members, we're gonna, if you guys want to be have a membership at the gym, you can come to our gym. We're open 6 days a week. And what we'll do, we will waive the initiation fee, $14 a month. 2 weeks. One of those. And I kid you not, I was in Bible school. I said the S word underneath my breath in Bible school. And then I was like, wow. And once again, I started working out. And then now all of a sudden I'm working out. And then I'm working out and I'm going to Bible school and I'm studying the Bible and by myself. No girl, nothing. Just me, the book, the school, exercising, and now I'm getting my mind right, I'm getting my body right, and I'm getting my soul right. And little did I know, I didn't know what was going on at the time. And I didn't know the connection until later. So then all of a sudden, everything just started changing, and I ended up, graduating from Bible school. I came back a year later. I started doing Bible studies in Texas over at the Tarrant County Jail. I went back to the jail to help people out. And they didn't care about my felony at the time. Texas was very lean on laws. So I'd do Bible studies there, and then I would leave, and then I'm going to be honest with you, if it wasn't for my daughter, I would have stayed there. I got a chance to go to all these churches. I went to T.D. Jakes' church. You guys heard of T.D. Jakes? I like T.D. Jakes. He's funny. I like him. And I went to his big church, me and my mom went, and then we went to Kenneth Copeland's church, and we went to these great churches in Texas. But I knew I had to come back. And I remember the last night before I was coming back, I knew that my life was going to change, that it was going to be tough. I knew I'd go back to home, and whenever you go back to home, you got to deal with all that stuff that back home deals with. The people in your life, temptation. And I felt like I was just protected for this whole year, because I didn't know anybody. I could just focus on what? Me. So I knew. And I'm not embarrassed to tell you that the night before I was listening to B.B. Winans, and I was crying. I was at this park and I was bawling because I said, God, you did so much for me. Look what you did. You changed my mind. I'm clean. I'm not doing drugs anymore. And I go what can I say? And I knew that I was going to have temptation when I got back. And then sure enough, I said, God, let me back up. When I went to Bible school, I told God, I said, God, I'm not going to have sex till I'm married. All right. Don't look at me, you holy people in here. I went 3 years without having sex. The most, thank you. The most proudest streak I've ever had. And I didn't cuss, and I'm following me. I should have said this earlier. It was just, I know exactly, it was like a walking volcano. But this is what I thought, that she's here, I'm not going to say that, another baby here. But that's the way I thought. I said, God, you did so much for me. That's the least I can do, because that was a big part of my life. Don't look at me so holy, you guys. And then so I stopped cussing. That was a big part of my life. And all these things that I did when I was dealing drugs and things like that. So I said, okay, I'm going to give you this because you gave me this. You gave me a second chance in my life. So for 3 years, not only did I not have sex, but I tried to be this this person that I thought I was supposed to be. That even my Bible school that I went to, Brandon, it was a non-denominational Bible school, but there was still a denomination inside the... It was a great school. It was great. They talked about integrity, and it was great. But they wanted you to be a certain way. And for 2-3 years, I was cracking. I was going to take it. I remember calling my friend person. I ain't this nice, bro. I said, I ain't this nice. I'm being fake. And I go, and these people, you know what they do? You know what happens when you're nice? They buy you dinner, and they do all these things. I'm like, I ain't this nice. I'm about to explode. I get upset, and I speak my mind, and I was being this fake, unhappy person for 3 years. So finally, I end up cracking. And I remember after that happened, I went there and I said, God, I said, I'm so sorry. You know, I said, I let you down. I go, you did all this for me, and I let you down. And then, you know, he forgave me, but I don't know how long it took where I didn't forgive myself. But I knew he forgave me. But I didn't forgive myself for a long time. It took me 16 years to forgive myself for being high when my daughter was born. And I got that out of my system 2 years ago at a workshop. So I started opening my mind up, and that takes us to these things of these churches. And here's where it's probably going to get a little ugly, but I got to share what's on my mind. These denominations, and let's talk about these denominations a little bit. What I learned growing up and going to all these different churches is that each denomination has these laws. And now that I've experienced how God is much more bigger, look, I'm a personal trainer right now. And remember, I wanted to do what I thought he wanted me to do, but he saw something 11 years ago, 12 years ago that I didn't see. And now, if I wasn't a personal trainer, I wouldn't be sitting here. Monica, and all these people, Lorraine and Tracy, and I met everybody. So if I didn't be part of this gym, I wouldn't be here. And I realized that helping people physically was just as rewarding as helping people emotionally. But I didn't think, I thought in the box, I put God in the box because of what I was taught. But me experiencing these things and seeing all these things that God helped me, Brandon, I wasn't even in a church when I was in jail. And I had God felt like he was talking to me in movies that weren't Christian, and music that wasn't Christian, but they teach us, you gotta go Christian music, Christian this, but there was movies that he would, music, can you guys relate? That's not Christian, but you knew it was real. And then if you tell somebody, oh no, it's not, no, it's not, because it's not in that what? That box. So the problem now is I've experienced all this. These denominations, how many denominations do we have? I Googled it. We've got thousands of denominations just in this country. Evangelical, Pentecostal, Jehovah's Witness, Baptist, Northern Baptist, Southern Baptist, all these things. And they have put him in a box. So you've handcuffed him. You've handcuffed him. Because he can only be as big as that denomination. He can only be as big as the Catholic Church, Kevin. He can be only as big as the Presbyterian Church. And anything outside that, they don't believe in that. So, meanwhile, all these things, oh, okay, it's going to get, I got to share. And I was talking to Kathy about this the other day. When we look at these churches and these robes that they have, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize for what I'm about to say, but I got to say the truth. Catholic Church, you hear these stories. These little boys, confession altar boys. So what happens when that little boy goes and sees that robe? What do they attach that to?
God.
And the aura of the beautiful church and the stained glass and the presence and the candles and everything. So they see that little altar boy. I mean, they see that priest and they say, what? He must be Holy, he must be what? God, as a kid. And what happens when that happens? When that terrible sin happens? Now that kid not only has to deal with being, you know what I'm talking about? Now he's got an issue with God now. Because he thought that happened. Because he saw that and he thought he saw God. And meanwhile, God is going, that's not my fault. I had no say so in that. Why have you made me look bad? With your robes and your cars and your money and all these things. So everybody gets mad. You read the Bible, denominations were not God made. We made them. God said, I'll build that church. Church is one or two people. When you guys talk about God, Gina, you and me talk about God and God, we're having church. It's never said denominations. Man came up with the denomination. And man has made God look bad. I think this generation now, I think people are ready to explore and to see and to get him out of the box. I think this is the time now. So much that's going on. There's nothing wrong with going to churches. I was going to put that to my close, I must say it now. Because church is good. I believe in support groups. Supports are good. And you know, there are some good churches. I've been to some. But there are a lot of churches that they all got structure and tradition and laws. And sometimes doing that, let's talk about a little bit of the things that the church does. Some of the churches. When they want something, they make you feel guilty. Well, we need this part of the church, and we need your time, we need your dedication. So, you know, and then they grab a scripture in the Bible to even hit it harder. And I know the difference now between a hustle and what's real. And God ain't no hustle. And they use that to get your money, to get your time, and maybe they believe it. Because they know, okay, well, shoot, you know, all right, well, the pastor said that, so where's my checkbook? And I don't want to make God mad. So here, all right, you know what, I won't be able to do this today. I'll have somebody pick up my kids because I got to go help the church because I don't want to what? I don't want to make God mad. And we want to talk about that for a little bit. How to tell the difference between God and church, the building. And some people don't know the difference. That's why when we feel guilty, oh man, I got to get back to church. Man, I've been sinning a lot lately. It's kind of like I need to get back to sin convictions like trading. I need to get back to the gym because I feel bad. So nobody knows the difference between God and church. Does anybody know the difference between God and church? Anybody?
Church is organized by people, and God is uplifted in love, no matter, and there's not structure around His love.
Right. And sometimes people, and I'm guilty too. My mom, bless her heart, gave thousands of dollars to these churches, and she gets mad. I'm drifting a little bit because she's like, you know what, Steve? You know what, mijo? You know what mijo means? It's Mexican for something. You know what, mijo? I could have sent you to college for all those thousands of dollars I gave to that preacher. And I was like, you know what, Mom, don't worry about that. Because when you gave it with your heart. And you'll be judged on that. You gave it because you cared. And what they're going to have to do the explaining of what they did with that money. Thank you. Because you give it out of heart, out of love. So don't worry about that. But going back to these organizations, we get so caught up about that. And these organizations, churches become a clique. It's become a gang. What's who's who? And if you're not in that circle, what happens? If you're not in the clique, you're not hanging around the pastors, pastor this. So, If you look at Paul, there's no doubt in my mind that if Paul would have really been very careful when he wrote these letters to the church, because that's all that was, just like T.D. Jakes said. Every church folks been acting crazy for 2,000 years. Every letter Paul wrote was dealing with what? Church folks. So if he knew what it would happen now, Brandon, I bet you he would have been very careful of what he wrote. Because look where it's went. I think we followed more teachings of those and not the teachings of Jesus. Somehow we got it twisted. But that's okay, because that's what we do. Man, us humans, we get it all twisted. I get it twisted. Here I was going to talk about, not judging people, and I still judge. I'm sorry, I still do. You should see me in a boxing class. The lady don't hit the bag. 18 years old. And I got a lady 55 years old hitting the bag like I stole something from her. And she's hitting that bag real hard. Boom. And this lady does this. And I want to go, you hit the bag. But I can't. Because I get fired. So all these smiley faces you see me at the gym, you guys. Okay. There's another side of me. And my mom knows. So we're all guilty. All of us. What bothers me about the church is the judgment. Now I'm going to be honest again. Working at a gym, I've had more people that belong to a church have called people fat than people that don't belong to the church. Breaks my heart, say that. Don't want to be guilty like everybody else and beat them over head with the Bible scriptures, so I won't. But I watch. I've come to realize that sometimes I get more nervous when people start talking about God a lot. And they start saying, bless this, and all this church, this Christian terminology. Because usually sometimes those are the ones that are going to stick you. What's going to get you? And they get you with the Bible, the quote of Bible verse. I've had more people that necessarily, they believe, like my father, my dad. He don't talk much. He's like, I don't preach about God, but I love you and I'll help you whatever you want. He's old-fashioned. He's like, I don't like a lot of people that talk. I get nervous when people talk. My dad's from the old school, and I like that. So he's not real big on preachers because the preachers always talk. They preach and not teach. Everybody can preach, but who can teach? Everybody can say, go stop sitting and stop doing this, but who will really take the time to go help you? Go hit that bag and give me a double jab cross. Or who will take the time like Alan and show you how to bend your knees, and when you hit, you want to make sure you hit with the 2 front knuckles. You know what I mean? Stop saying, will that pastor take the time and show you? Not all pastors will preach bad. Brandon, I know his pastor. I can vouch for him. New Life Community. That's a good man right there. I know what his motive is. But we've gotten into the man-made of everything. The man-made of it. And it's so funny. I'm already on this teaching and not preaching. So, if we open our minds to certain things. So, have we come up with a case that maybe the organization has kind of set their own rules and got in the box? Can we all agree on that a little bit? All right, I'm going to push you on a little bit more. If we've come up with an organization or a theory that, man, I mean, we put them in the box. When I started studying the New Testament, because remember I said I want to search for the truth. Whatever this higher power was, I want to get to know it, and I want to know it real. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to study other people's religions too. I'm not going to be closed-minded. I'm not going to be ignorant. So I'm going to study, but I knew, to me personally, that the God of the Bible is my Bible. But I studied Muslim religion, I studied Muhammad, became open-minded. Some of us are not taught to do that. God gave us, they said we only use 10% of the brain. I probably only use 5% of that. Some decisions I made, I still make. But so now we got to be a little bit more. So we got to think. We're taught to think outside the box. What do they tell you in your job? Think outside the box. Think big. But what? But we don't do that in religion and God. We don't let God really be God. Because we think in what? That little box. So when I started doing my research and we started finding different books that were, and I'll probably lose you guys right here. I'm going to hear it tomorrow. Steve, you're doing good until you said this. These books that they found. That the disciples wrote. Judas. Philip. Mary Magdalene, which we're going to talk about. Thomas. And they found these recently in caves, just like the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. And I started thinking outside the box, and I was like, why weren't these books included in the New Testament? And these were disciples of Jesus. "15 years ago, I would have said, we're not supposed to know. Because we're just not supposed to. That's the Bible. Now, being broad-minded, ever since he told me to get a gym membership, anything's possible. I'm thinking outside the box. And it seems to me it's worked. I was supposed to do that. It shows. Then it started Mary Magdalene. And I always thought that was fascinating with Mary Magdalene because she was a woman. And I always went, even in Bible school, when he appeared to her, not any of the disciples, Mary. I found that fascinating. But I just didn't know why. And then they found this gospel that she wrote. And that she was having an argument. And then you can YouTube it. You can go on Google. I want you guys to do the research for yourself. And then tell me what you think. Finding these writings that she wrote that never made it to the New Testament. And I'll tell you why I think that in a second. But these teachings where she was supposed to be the head of the church. With Peter. But Peter took it over. And not her. And she knew all these personal things about Jesus. And Thomas knew all these personal things about Jesus and Judas. But they weren't included. Why? Case in point. Who do I have? Okay. Well, actually, Kelly. There's Kathy, Jeannie, Monica, Lorraine, Tracy. They know me. They know me in the last 2 or 3 years. Then there's, Kathy knows me, and then there's Kelly and my friends that know a different side of me. So if we wanted to get together and put together Steve's Training for Life, maybe we should put what Kathy, Jeannie, and Monica know about me. We don't really want to talk about these other people, like Cedric and my guys I grew up with that did some stuff that I'm not too. So, and that's what they did with the church. Why they didn't put those gospels in the New Testament? Because they wanted to paint Jesus a certain picture. Because and when I started studying this, you know what happened? It didn't draw me away from God; it drew me closer. Because I realized that Jesus was human too. I know I'm getting deep. Follow me. I knew, because remember I told you this perfect life that I tried to live. And then come to find out maybe Jesus had a little temper too. And all these gospels of you know, what he said and it didn't match up. And why is Luke and Mark, they're in the gospel and they weren't even disciples. It's like secondhand information. It's like me and you, Julie, hanging out. And you know me for 3 years, and all of a sudden, Brandon's the one that writes the gospel about me. Secondhand information. So who knows me better? these Gospels weren't included in the New Testament. And I know some people say, well, they found them later, 200 years after. Okay, that's fine. Why can't they revise it and add it? We're adding new Bibles every 10, 15 years. NIV, New King James, Double New King James. Every 10 years, we're adding a new Bible, which gets me even more nervous. Just putting up that there. I'm not saying go on some crazy goose chase. I'm just kind of wanting us to think a little bit. So when I started doing that, I was like, okay. And I was like, well, you know, I'm having two daughters, and seeing that the church that put the synodic gospels together and the 27 books, and how they shined away from Mary Magdalene, because in those days, if you were a woman, you didn't have no respect. And if Jesus, and they didn't, you know, and Jesus, obviously, there was something about her that he wanted. But to the church, it's like, nah, we ain't gonna put that in there, because the way society is, nah, they won't buy it. So we ain't gonna put that in there. But maybe Jesus wanted it. As a matter of fact, my heart tells me he did. He wanted to open his mind to get the women to be more fair. And then he came into a prostitute at that, to show his love. Prostitutes are looked down now. Just think in those days, Victoria. Thomas's gospel. Google it. It's amazing. I'll let you guys do the research where you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I just want to show you. Google all those if you really, really want to know God in a whole different crazy, in an open-minded way, not a crazy way, in an open-minded way. Open your mind. Something I didn't do. I was forced to when I was in jail. So that's why there's a side of it, and I was telling Kathy, and I know Jeannie was saying, are you bashing the church? Well, no, in some ways I'm not, because I've been there. I lived in that box. And that box broke my heart and made me fake. I couldn't be real. Now I can be real. And I love myself more. Nobody is as happy as me. I am so happy with my life. And I am so imperfect. And I cuss. And I smoke a cigar.
Oh, you did?
Sorry, Mom. That was great in there, by the way.
Is that news to you?
Every now and then. Not all the time, but every now and then. But I know me, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with me being me. Nobody's better at than you being you. We can't live fake, but sometimes the church makes us fake. Didn't Jesus come against all that? All that tradition? All that religion? What was Jesus' main concern?
Hypocrisy.
Rituals. I have to say this, my daughter's Jehovah's Witness. I know. Believe me, I know. But I love her. And me and my mom would bump heads. Because she would tell me, you need to. And I was like, no, I don't want to confuse her. So I'm going to take the step back and let her. And that was hard. But I didn't want to confuse her like I was confused. I wanted her to have her own mind. And some of the things that I didn't like when the Jehovah's Witnesses, they get disfellowshipped. There's a group of elders that are men. And if you're not living right, you go see the elders. And the elders have the power to, they call it, disfellowship you, which kicks you out of the church. And when you get kicked out of the church, to come back, you know what you got to do to come back, to get reinstated? You got to go to those meetings. But you're not allowed to talk to nobody. You got to sit there. Pay your dues. Janine just went to a funeral with it. Jehovah's Witness funeral. Can you close that door, Mark? Can you close that door? Thank you. So you have to do these things. You can talk to your immediate family, but you can't talk to nobody else. How humiliating is that? You can't talk to nobody. And you got to make your way better so you can get back. And who put you back in there? Who reinstates you? Man. Would Jesus ever humiliate you like that? And the sad thing is that they think that's okay. Well, Dad, you know, we got to work our way up, and we got to show ourselves approved. And I got into it with Mom one time. I said, show me your Bible, your New World Translation, what this is. Well, it's not. So I love her, and then you know what? I can't get mad because she's turned out to be this beautiful girl. And I look at the big picture. I stop with the rules and just love her. Just love her. That was hard. I wasn't that way in the beginning, I'm not going to lie to you. But that's for the place I'm at now. Love. And have a relationship. And that's just one denomination. They're everywhere. What happened 4 or 5 months ago, Monica, when that guy predicted the end of the world? Do you know people gave up their homes? They gave away everything. We're going to talk about that in a second. He was the difference between what we think is God and just a smooth talker. He was charismatic, obviously, to get those people to do that. We need to know the difference between somebody who's good at talking, who's on that pulpit, and somebody who's a hustle. And maybe they don't even know it's a hustle. Just because that guy's up there in the nice suit and the video screen and he's got the church and everything doesn't mean that he's right. You got to check this. That's what I learned. Check this. I know hustle. When I got out of jail, my mom, I love my mom. She's been there for me so much. She sent me to this conference. I got out August 12th. Remember, Mom? You sent me to the conference August 27th in Orange County. So I'm sitting there, and she pays for my hotel room, and I go to these conferences again, and I'm fresh out of jail, and I'm ready to do this. And all of a sudden, I'm in this. It's in a tent, all right? And this guy named John Ambenzini, all right? Google him. Anyways, I'm sitting in there in this room. There's about 1,000 people in there. And all of a sudden, he gets these people riled up in this emotion and this energy to get people to donate $1,000. And if you had $1,000, it was a green envelope. It was $100 to be a white envelope. And he said, how many people are willing to do this thing with God? And green envelope. So one lady, green envelope. And I'm sitting there. And, oh my God, my blood is boiling. All right, I was like, well, I'm on probation. I can't do nothing. Yes. And then all of a sudden he says, the Spirit of God says that somebody was going to give me a boat. Oh. I'm going to go back to jail. I'm going to go to jail tonight. I know I am. And I'm looking around, Crystal. I go, am I the only one in this room that can see this? Yes. Because everybody was and do it. Hustle. People that are good talkers. I used to tell my daughter, be careful with those smooth talkers. They'll tell you whatever they want to get you. How many of us have failed into that? Get on that infomercial in the middle of the night and buy that set and forget it. Because they're good talkers. We don't know the difference. God forbid if you're on a pulpit and you know your Bible. So you know what you know to do? I'll show you how to do that. Check this. Check this. What does this say? This is never wrong. Right or wrong, it's never wrong. Good or bad. I know some of you guys thought, man, my husband cheated on me. This said yes and found out what? Or good. You knew this. This will tell you one thing. And that's what I like about what we're doing with mind, body, and soul. And today's talk is about the soul part. But we talk about the mind, we talk about the body. I'm trying to get it all connected. So we can get everything lined up. So you got to check this. This will tell you, when you go back to your church, go back to your church. I don't want you, if you're happy. But check this. These gospels, do I want you to go on a wild goose chase? No. But just walk away going, could it be? Because obviously these denominations were man-made, and they had reasons. Could this be too? And why? There's nothing wrong with asking why. At the end of the day, that's what we need, faith sometimes. Do as much research, Brandon. then make your decision. That's what I came to the conclusion. Because me and my mom would do these studies on Revelation. Because Israel and Lebanon are going to war. Where's it say in the Bible? I'm doing all this, right? Getting all excited, watching Fox News and CNN. This is the war of all wars that the Bible talks about. And find out it wasn't. All these prophets me and my mom grew up with said, Jesus is coming before I die. They died. All these crazy things. And come to find out, I just think their heart was right, but they believed their own hype. They didn't surround themselves around people that grounded. And your Benny Hinn's and those people, I'm not a big fan of them. But I think a lot of these people's hearts were right, these televangelists. But they got pumped up and they believed their own hype. And the people that were with them told them this stuff. You need this. You need a private plane because you travel so much. And I'm sure they go, no, no, no. And then eventually, no, you do because you need your rest. Sir, let me grab your Bible. Let me hold you. Let me basically worship you. You need all this stuff because you're a man of God. So what happens if you surround yourself around those people, those naysayers? You end up believing it. You go, all right, maybe I do. You need a suite because of your schedule and you have this entourage. The crew I hang around with, they're rough. I can think I do good in the talk and get beat down in our first meeting. But they're honest. Their heart is right. Those are the people I want to be with. Even though if it hurts. Even a guy sitting up here with low self-esteem that you got to realize. It's okay though. I know their heart is right, constructive criticism, and I can take that. I don't want a bunch of naysayers. And that's where I think those televangelist preachers have gone way to the side. So what am I saying as we close on all this? I'm saying I know everybody in here believes in God. You guys raise your hands, you went to church. And I think the two most important things is not necessarily rules, laws, but love and relationship with God. You know God's problem? Miles Monroe said this. God has a problem. I know you guys go, no, he's almighty. He got a problem. You know what God's problem is, Monica? He can't love himself. That's why he had us. That's why he created man, because he was alone. That's God's problem. Why do we have kids the right way? So we can have a kid to spend time with them and have a relationship with them, right? We spend time with them. We do give them laws and rules, but why do we give them rules? For them. And I think that's the reason why we have these rules in the Bible, for us. So we have a drama-free life. Not so these rules that some of these organizations say, you need to do this or you're sinning against God. I think these rules are for us, these rules that we have. He's more concerned about relationship. That's why the New Testament, you go into to study these people. That's why I connected in Jesus and love. Debate. Okay, well, Steve, the Bible, obviously if those books were supposed to be in there, then those Gospel of Mary and Thomas then weren't, then I don't believe it. Okay, that's fine. I'm almost there too, to be honest with you. But all of them, most of them, even the ones not in there, talked about one thing that we all can relate to, was love. All of them talked about that. And if we're believers of Christian faith, we should focus on love and not judging people. Religious people beat you over the head and scare you to believe in God. And they use the scripture. Godly people was that lady when I was in jail. Godly people tell you, do you need anything? How you doing? Let me take you out to coffee. You need a couple dollars? Need to talk? That outfit looks good on you. They make you feel good. Religious people scare you. They tell you you're going to do this or you're going to go to hell. They almost put the fear of God in you, and they try. Because sometimes that's what they've been taught. Some of these denominations, it's all about serving. But their heart, I've had them come up and talk to me. I can tell they're there just for one reason. They're not there really concerned about me. They're there on a mission. Just like John said. The hypocrisy in these laws. It's about love and relationship. And I think that's the reason why. And as I close, I want us to think something real quick. Do you know, real quick, the original purpose, God didn't want a king. He didn't want a king. You study your Bible, you look in the New Testament. But the Israelites wanted to be like everybody else in all the other countries. God wanted what? A relationship. And I can't explain this. I can't prove this. This is just my theory. I think he knew that if we put a king, that the people are going to worship the king and not me. They're going to worship that man. And I want a relationship with these people. But the Israelites want to be like everybody else. So what did God say to Samuel? Okay, go ahead. Fine. All right, here's what I'm going to do. You want a king? You want to be like everybody else? Now you're going to have to follow all these laws. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to give a tenth. You're going to have to do all these things. Fine, go. And then who was the first king? Saul. He was, you know what happened with him. And then the next king was David. And so what happens is the people started worshiping what? The king. Do we worship the preacher these days? We worship the guy on the pulpit more. The Catholic Church, who's the most powerful person in the Catholic Church? The Pope. Do you know that people go crazy over that guy? I think he knew what he was doing. He knew that if man came up there, and then when man falls, the flock falls. Because they put their eyes on the man and not God. If the Pope falls, the whole church is going divided. The most powerful in the church. He wants relationship. He wants you to love people and not judge. And I know we all judge. I judge too. But that's what he really wants. If we really want to do right, do the best you can to love people. Help them out. Go back to your church, but that's fine. But I don't want to tell you what to do because this talk is not, and I was telling Kathy about this when we were putting these notes together. This talk is not about do this or what I'm telling you. Then I'd be like everybody else. My talk is think. That's what we want to do in these talks. Open your mind. Think about fitness and open your mind about fitness. Open your mind about faith. Open your mind about your mind and confidence. And that's what I want you guys to do. I want you to open your minds and say, you know, well, maybe he is a little bit bigger. And is it worth judging people? Not talking to your cousin for 15 years because you had this big old fight over God and your church is better than his church. And then you come to find out that wasn't true, and then you lost all those years. Can't make that up. I've seen it. One of the things that my mom, that I love her about, when I was hooked on drugs, she took me in. Most religious parents would have kicked me out. This is the Lord's house. I'm going to keep the Lord's house clean. You want to drink? You want to do it? Get out. I was hooked. You know what my mom said? Come on over here. I don't want you sleeping in another drug house. I don't want you sleeping on the streets. I want to know where my son is. She was the greatest example of true love. But denominations kick you out. You keep the house clean. And then that's your son, and look at your son. He's sleeping in somebody else's house. Doing God knows what it is, especially if it's a daughter. But we think because we've been taught this is God's house, we keep it clean. You really want to love God? You really go love him? You go grab that kid. Bring him back. That's love. Did not Jesus do that? And going back to these rules and thinking, just him appearing to a prostitute is end of story. That shows enough of what he thought about people that were perfect. So, if you have your notepads, write that down. Love, relationship. Rules are for us. for our better. Let's continue to try to teach and not preach. I'm guilty of that. I get on my high horse. I'm guilty of that. And try not to shove God down people's throats. That's the worst. Forcing people. God created us with free will. Why did he do that? Monica, if me and you want to start dating, I need you to want to be with me too, just as much. I can't force you to be with me. Because if I force you to be with me, who's going to be happy? Me. You ain't going to be happy. We feel like we have to force God on the people. You can't force people to like something you're not. That's why he gave us free will. Let it happen. Let it go the way it's supposed to. Don't try to go grab a Bible verse and tell them you're doing this. So here's 1 Peter 2:23. Church folks love to do that because they've been taught that. I'm guilty. Relationship. Love. I've said it over and over. I want to hammer that. Go back to your church. Be part of the if you want to be part of the organization, that's fine. And this is the only time I will say this. Don't ever put your whole life into a building. That building is made by man. And man will let you down. I will let you down. You may send me an email and need count, and I might not get back to you. I will let you down. That pastor is going to let you down one day. God will never let you down. Go to that church. Be part of it. But don't put your heart and soul into a building. Because it's going to hurt you eventually. Because they're humans. No, not my church. If your church is human, it's going to happen. Some of it's already happened already. Put your faith in God, your higher power. And don't try to live a perfect life. Come on, don't try to live a perfect life. You'll be a walking volcano exploding, and it'll be bad news, bad news. Know that he loves you just like my mom. My mom may not like certain things I do, but she loves me, and that's the way God is too. God may not like what you do, but he loves you. My mom said, hey, Steve, if you're a serial killer, I'm still going to love you. I might not like what you do, but I'm going to love you. And that's the way God is. We've been taught to have all these rules. Relationship. That's why he used all these old people in the Old Testament. He used these people that had weaknesses, but he saw their heart. Where your heart is. Where's our heart? Where's my heart when I go talk to that Christian like we were talking about earlier? Are you trying just to pursue me? Just so I can go tell people back at my church? I'll close right here. The box. Tonight, when I say goodbye to you guys, as I'm wrapping things up, a lot of us will walk out of this box. We'll go outside through the box. We will hop into our box. And we'll get into our box and go home in our box. And if some of you guys like to eat late at night like me, you will go into the box and get yourself some food. And you will walk into your box and take a shower. And then you will watch a little bit of your box before you go to bed. And then you will lay on your box as you go to sleep. The box was always created by man. Everything. Don't put God in a box.